Good evening, Postal family. What's going on? My name is Saeed. Welcome back to my channel. How's everybody doing this Sunday evening? Hope everybody's well. Just got to get to that video a few weeks ago. In my comments, my supporters been asking me, look up the history of arbitration. So I did, and that's what today's video is about. A little bit history about arbitration and what it has accomplished for the NALC in the previous times. First of all, how's everybody doing? My name is Saeed. If you like postal content, this is what I do. I appreciate all my supporters. If you like this sort of thing, I would love to have you join my channel. Thanks so much for all the supporters. Keep giving the channel and the video thumbs up. Really helps out the channel so much. Appreciate everybody, what y'all do. And as always, thanks so much for the comments. I did get through all the comments. I answered everybody. Thank God I did. Thank God it was so many. And I'm glad I did that. It was was a little bit time there, but got back to everybody. Feels good. So that's what today's video is about. A little bit get into arbitration and the history, like I said. So that's what we're facing right now with all the ballots returning. We got 2 extra weeks now, so if you still haven't received it, call that NALC main headquarters number 202. It's in my post. So just flip down on my YouTube post. You'll find the number. I'm sure you can find it on NALC website too. So use this 2 weeks wisely. If you haven't received the ballot, get it coming and send it back ASAP so we can move to arbitration. So let's get to today's video. The article is from the previous, I think, the NALC president, Frederick Rolando. So this is what he writes in his article. I found it really, enlightening. He writes about what had happened, what takes place, so I want to share it. 50 years of postal interest arbitration. As we have highlighted in these pages, this year, 2020, marks the 50th anniversary of Great Postal Strike of 1970. After we overcame the COVID-19 pandemic, we will find a way to properly celebrate the brave union members who risked everything to win collective bargaining rights for post office employees. Our plans to do so in New York in March and at our 2020 biennial convention in August had to be indefinitely postponed. But this month I want to celebrate less appreciated legacy of 1970 strike, our system of interest arbitration. That's because in September we initiated the NALC's 7th interest arbitration since the Postal Reorganization Act. Interest arbitration is the process we use to reach a collective settlement when conditions of city letter carrier employment reach an impasse. It is an alternative to what parties in the private sector use to force an agreement, a union strike or a management arbitrators who then select a neutral arbitrator to serve as the chairman of an arbitration board. The board then conducts hearings where both sides present evidence and testimony in support of their bargaining positions on pay, work hours, leave policies, and other employment matters. Once the board hears all the evidence, it meets in private executive session to decide the contents of national agreement, often using the evidence presented to negotiate compromises on the issues in dispute. The resulting arbitration awards is final and binding on the parties. We have used interest arbitration 6 times in prior 13 rounds of collective bargaining. The NALC's officers, staff, and attorneys began preparing for the current arbitration long before formal negotiations to replace the 2016-2019 national agreement began in 2019, despite our best efforts to reach a negotiated settlement, which continue to this day. We decided earlier this year to proceed to arbitration, and the parties chose arbitrator Dennis Lolan, who's the same guy as our arbitrator this time around as well, to serve as the neutral chairman. NALC's longtime outside legal counsel, Keith Secular, serves as the union arbitrator. This time around, amid a global pandemic, we've been forced to be creative and innovative to pull off the arbitration safely. Instead of meeting in person in Washington, we are conducting hearings virtually for the first time using video technology. All of the arbitrators, attorneys, and witnesses are working from different locales around the country and meeting via Zoom calls. This was during COVID pandemic, so we couldn't be in regular meetings. But now this time around is back to normal. This is just article is from back then. I just want to share what our former president wrote. But the process is basically the same one we have used in the past. The two sides alternate in providing expert testimony, data, and arguments in support of their contract proposals. Witnesses testify and are cross-examined. Rebuttal and sur-rebuttal witnesses are called to reply and are in turn cross-examined. Formal exhibits are presented and hearing transcripts are produced by a court reporter. The process gives both sides a chance to make the case for their views and the chance to convince the board to adopt their proposals. So this is a full-blown, it's like a court case, with the full-blown recorder and everything. This is news to me. I'm learning as I read. So this arbitration is a very serious matter, and both sides have the opportunity to present their case. We can, God willing, our case is presented correctly with the times, what the carrier needs. We can really come out on top and have a decent increase if Mr. Nolan buys into the testimony, whoever presents. So, at a time when labor strikes have become exceedingly rare due to the part of judicial and legislative constraints that have weakened the right to strike in the United States, interest arbitration gives workers and their unions an alternative way to achieve their collective bargaining goals. Indeed, last year there was just 27 strikes in the United States involving 1,000 or more workers, compared to 371 strikes in 1970. So interest arbitration is especially valuable when the strike option is not present. That is why it is most often used in the public sector, especially for police and fire departments, where binding arbitration provides a fair way to the parties to resolve their collective bargaining disputes without disruptions in essential services. But it could be used in the private sector too. In fact, the major labor law reform bill passed by the House of Reps in February calls for interest arbitration to be used for the first contracts when new bargaining units are formed. We owe our brothers and sisters who went on strike in 1970 a huge debt of gratitude. They not only secured the collective bargaining rights that catapulted letter carriers into the middle class, but they also won our right to place our collective bargaining demands before an interest arbitration board. The law that grew out of strike, the Postal Reorganization Act of 1970, provided for the process we are using right now to advance our interests. It may not have been a perfect substitute for the right to strike in 1970, but it has become especially valuable in 2020 when the right to strike barely exists. It is a time-tested process that has served our union well. Of course, it is the NALC's strong preference to reach voluntary agreements that can be sent out to the membership for ratification vote. For that reason, I continue to engage postal management in order to reach a voluntary agreement even as the arbitration proceeds. Nothing in the process precludes us from doing so. We will continue to update members via the NALC website, mobile app. Here's to 50 years of collective bargaining and the 50 years of interest arbitration as well. So that's from the previous NALC president, very informed article. I picked up a few things from it, so it's really a significant process, much like a a case in court. You got two sides, presenting their testimony. You got witnesses. And then after everything is heard, the arbitrator, Nolan's got to decide which way to go, what's fair for the carriers, and what kind of, what things we get and benefit, everything that's going to be proposed. He's got to come on to give us a fair agreement, hopefully. Hopefully the Postal Service's side is weak in their testimony, so, we got to hope for the best there. So that's pretty much going over the history of NALC, the interest arbitrations. Also got a little bit of history in their collective bargaining history. Different years, what we did, what we accomplished. Settlement 1973, joint bargaining 7 postal unions, wage increases, such and such. I don't want to go into the details. There's quite a few from 1970. So the last one, 2011-2016 NALC bargains alone. No two-tier pay scale. NALC successfully argued that reducing the two-step pay of city letter carriers justified given the extension of street times in recent years. 3 general wage increases, 1%, 1%, 1.5%, along with 7 COLAs awarded. So as I'm looking at all these, that much of a wage increase never really took place. So, granted, the times we're living in now with all the high costs of everything, inflation going up the roof, but just taking a look at the history of the interest arbitration, the contract ratifications, nothing's ever was given that high for us to expect this go around. So the history doesn't kind of favor us right now. It's a totally different time frame we're in. Everything, like I said, is gone sky high, and we just need a different decision that's going to be reached for us. That's never been happened before. We got to get an increase that, the percentage is the highest ever. We haven't seen. A lot of people are going to say, well, I'm daydreaming. I'm just praying for the best, man. That's what we need. We need much better contract and agreement from the arbitration. That's just what I'm hoping for. Our history doesn't side with us. That hasn't happened before. All I'm seeing is 1% all through, 2%, nothing higher in all the years past. So that's just what I'm looking at, to see some hope in the history. But what we need right now it hasn't happened in history. So God willing, it's going to be a first go around of a high pay increase, as much as we need. But, that's just me thinking time will tell. All we can do right now is, hope and pray. That's what I always say. So just wanted to make a quick recap video on the comments. For a while now, people have been mentioning, look at the history of the NALC arbitration. So I did that. And thanks so much for that comment. Really, other stuff for me to learn from. And so that's where we're at, returning ballots and keep returning those no votes. And we still got some time. Everything is extended, the deadline to the 27th. So we got a whole month in front of us to get all the ballots, all the no votes in. There's no excuses now. So please, everybody, get those ballots in there. If you haven't received it, again, call that NALC headquarters number. If you still don't have the headquarters number, shoot me a comment. I'll give it to you right away. So, and fill it out correctly. Someone had mentioned in my comments, I say just put an X on it. What I mean is fill the no out completely, like it shows you in the example. That's just speaking terms, some word came out of my mouth, said put an X in the no. That's just speaking terms. I don't mean literally. And, another thing to answer from a comment, the carrier we lost in New York, I had mentioned he was murdered in a gas station. Not in a gas station, no, so somebody corrected me, was a deli. I apologize, I had mistakenly said it. So these are just speaking terms. Sometimes, I'm not 100% going with the facts. If I do make a mistake, please pardon me, excuse me. So, but thanks for the comments to clarify everything. And I hope to do my best always. So thanks again. That's today's video. Please stay safe out there, stay good, and keep those no words coming. And so we'll talk to you on the next video. Saeed out.